I've been drumming coming up on 4 years now. And when I started, I quickly decided that I didn't really want to take the more professional route, or I didn't necessarily want to try and compete with a bunch of, studio people who had been playing since they were 3. On top of that, I didn't necessarily feel drawn to drums because I wanted to be paid for it, to be paid to do it. It was kind of something more. So I just sort of indulged all the impulses that I had in response to thinking about what I wanted to develop or what I should be developing to play the way I wanted to. And as I've continued to do that more and more, I've started to develop into a more definable, what I would call, individual voice for drumming. And Deontony asked me to make an equation for that. And after a couple weeks of thinking, I think it really comes down to a pretty simple equation that has a lot of variables, a lot of factors that go into two things that create a result. And the first being your physical capability. And the second being, this is the crazier part, the percentage of your subconscious that you have access to, or more specifically, that you can allow to take over when you drum, while still actively retaining control of your physical ability, your physical movement. So let's start with the factors that go into physical ability first. It's generally pretty simple, but it really is kind of a lifestyle, or kind of encompasses a lifestyle, and that is as simple as eating enough food, eating healthy food if you can manage it, getting enough sleep, your mental state, and that plays more into the second variable. But if you're frustrated throughout the day, this kind of practice is similar to meditation, so that could absolutely get in the way of your physical execution, your physical fitness, your ability to simply just engage your muscles for longer than 10 minutes at a time. All of those kind of culminate in your ultimate physical ability. And when I first started drumming, I was taught some paradiddles. I have seen a lot of paradiddles, but really, I don't mean much more than, being able to do a good double, a good single, and you're like spangalang, or you're like, da 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 or da da da, with your feet and your hands. And as you kind of develop your approach and find your voice, or kind of listen more closely to what you're hearing, being able to just execute any of those as fast as you can think it is really all you need, because a lot of the time those rudiments that create fills, linear fills, whatever, they end up filling themselves in. That's not necessarily the most accurate way to do it, but it's a very fun way to do it, and seems to be working for me at the moment, and no one's paying me to drum, so fuck it, who cares? So I think that encompasses the physical aspect of this. Now, onto the crazy stuff. When I'm drumming, and what I look for in drumming is to exist in a state where I'm not present. I'm aware of what's happening, but I'm not actively thinking about what I'm playing. I feel like this is possible for everyone. I feel impulses when I sit down at a drum kit. I mean, maybe not everyone would feel impulses when they sit down at a drum kit. I feel like, most people just, if they could sit down at whatever instrument that they feel attuned to, at some point they'll start getting the urge to play something. And so I've always had those, and sometimes they're very strong, and I can make them, I can kind of listen to them and allow them to be stronger. And so early on, I kind of had this idea that as I'm playing music, why don't I just let my limbs kind of twitch and jerk, or, you know, like whatever inelegant way you want to describe it. Why don't I just give in to what my body is asking to do and see what that sounds like? What if I could refine that? As I've listened to more and more music and learned and watched others play all kinds of instruments or drums, I've been more able to inform, I guess, those impulses. So I guess that's what's happening with the active consciousness. That's what you are building up your active well of knowledge and understanding, so that when you hand over control to your kind of subconscious mind, you can inform the impulses your subconscious is trying, or you like, if they're feeding you a pure message, it's hard for you to interpret it because you don't have all the pieces like your subconscious does. So the more you know, the better you can interpret, because I guess that subconscious is still flowing through. You know, I'm not passed out. I'm not like somewhere else. I'm still present and conscious. So I guess you're using all that to interpret and better interpret and translate the impulses coming from your subconscious. From my understanding, it seems that music, those frequencies or you know, those beats, those pulses, those pitches are always happening all the time. And we are simply, whenever we're writing or composing or playing, we're simply tuning in to that and kind of bringing it to the forefront, bringing it to this plane. So doing this really changed my understanding of what needs to be happening to kind of keep a very busy piece of music cohesive. So one of the first things, kind of starting along this path of trying to allow my subconscious impulses to dominate my drumming or my kind of expression in the music, I wanted to give it some sort of anchor. And for me, I feel like, you know, the most important aspects of any music, especially modern music, is kick snare. So as long as your kind of boom ta is going, you can do, Brian Fraser Moore, I think, has a little lesson on YouTube about this too, where he's like, those are the triggers. Those have to happen. They don't happen at any other time. So I fill in everything around that. That's kind of how I've learned to play. So what if we took that step further and almost had just, you know, you were like you were soloing, you're just flying, you know, 16th, 30 seconds, whatever. And you're still hitting a prominent kick where you expect it in your kind of ta, ta, or, and the snare hitting where you would expect it. And, you know, I think D'Antoni and, you know, Zach Hill both really kind of explored this. And so I kind of, you know, that kind of became a little more clear to me. So the way I approach that thought process in the moment is something, and I just drew some quick abstract art. I just made some just quick abstract art to kind of illustrate. If you were playing, let's see if we can, is this beautiful? Okay, so if you are playing this, if this is your pattern, I don't think the audience, you know, especially in a live setting, but hey, even recording, generally, if the pattern is good, the audience isn't going to care about whether or not you hit the exact same pattern twice exactly. If it sounds good, if it swings, if it rocks, whatever, everyone's going to like it. So it's more important to understand just how much time can be manipulated if you're not thinking about it in a fixed structure. Because say one of these variances of these patterns is actually out of time. Well, if you look at that as, you know, some sort of hit with a 30-second rest in front of it and like a 16th rest after it or something, and work it back into your pattern, it's going to sound like you're an electronic, it's going to sound like you're programmed drums, and if you can recover from it, it will sound programmed, because we don't generally groove like drummers, especially in traditional music, don't generally groove that way. But it really opens up a whole new aesthetic, essentially, to be able to sound like you're going haywire. I guess in a way you are, but to be able to recover from it instantly, in the moment, creates these very cool complementary patterns that aren't exactly the same, right? But especially from a distance, which I feel like most people who listen to music anyway are doing, they're indiscernible, and in fact could even be considered complementary. And so I definitely have ADHD. That may just be a complete bullshit justification for me not being able to remember the exact pattern 18 times in a row, but in my opinion, if you are playing a cool groove, and if you are playing in time in a way that is, you're the metronome. You have complete control over your tempo. So if you can manage to maintain your tempo even when one of your limbs kind of moves out of that, as you recover, as you are like engaged with your subconscious, it might sound unpleasant or it might sound unfamiliar. But don't look at it as wrong, because it's just another way to accent something. It may not have been an accent you intended, but if you're going back and listening to it, examine it as if you did, and think about music that you might have heard that accents music similarly. I think a lot of the time it's like Aphex Twin. That is a style of drumming, and a voice, a way of speaking through drumming that I think is emerging, but hasn't really been explored on an individual basis yet, to the point that we really have more than a handful of people who are known for the way they play drums kind of simply being unlike anyone else's and almost what am I trying to say? Almost what am I trying to say? I can't, you can't replicate it. Whatever. Let's move on. So anyway, let's move on. So the next step would be asking, or if you can confirm that these patterns are fine together. And both of these are improvised, by the way. I want to stress that. Like, these are improvised patterns that work with the music you're listening to, but that you're generating real time. So if these work together, do these work together? That's the next question. This is an even more complicated pattern, and the differences between them are a little more obvious. I think it does. I'm biased, and that's why I'm making this, so that other people can see this and disagree. But I think it works together. Maybe your next question after that is, do these work together like back to back? Can you play them one on top of the other in any order? Even though, because here's the thing, the main form is still the same, right? Those kicks and snares are all in the same place, and all the other variations are minute. I mean, in a way, you could argue that all four of these designs are the exact same thing. So the more I've done this, the more I think and feel that a lot of people kind of approach drumming from an unnecessarily restrictive mindset, because it's a very small percentage of drummers out there who, are like in Nashville or New York or LA, and they really don't, they're machines, and they don't have any say-so over the way that they play drums, because they're performing at such a high level that they have to do exactly what whoever else, whoever the artist wants or whatever. Do the rest of us have to do that? It just doesn't seem, I just feel like everyone ends up, we all learn the same stuff, which is fine. I think that really brings a lot of community and a good kind of universal sense of commonality among a lot of drummers. But a lot of the time, I'm just interested in the craziest ideas that someone can come up with. And I think this is a good approach to really expanding on that. And I'd love to hear other people try and access that part of themselves that I've been working on for, nearly 4 years now, because I'm kind of at a point where if no one ever paid me to drum again, I don't really care. I find this endeavor so fulfilling that it really doesn't matter to me at this point. It's going to be something I kind of continue doing, whether in the public eye or not, and whether it allows me to play music with others or not. I certainly hope it does. Don't get that wrong, but let me know what you think of this. If something needs clarifying, please let me know. But yeah, this is kind of a general explanation of this approach and equation, which again is your physical capability plus your percentage of your subconscious access, or the percentage of you that you can let go to let the bigger part of you, the metaphysical, spiritual, subconscious you, into the experience of drumming and immersing yourself, in that endeavor. Sounds noble, huh? But all right, well, have a good day, guys.